now into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
That's a pill with two screens and it's open and you gotta swallow it.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Yo.
And we are here to talk all things tech this week, you guys. Hey, you know what's really exciting?
Everything.
I actually have some Microsoft news
What?
that is not associated to them fighting with Sony.
Wow.
What?
Actual Microsoft news. So I'm going to start us off with this because I kind of feel it might be important. I don't think it's important to us, but I'm going to say, dear listener, this might be a big thing for you. So Windows 11 2022 update now blocked on PCs with printing issues. So they have Microsoft has identified a new printing issue on the Windows 11 update that are serious enough to require this upgrade block.
Wow.
So, just so you know that if this is an issue, you can't upgrade to this new device, they are literally probably blocking you because of your printer.
Huh.
Kind of an interesting thing. So just so you know, if it's not coming up, like that's what's going on. So also the reason why I thought this is if you do have Windows 11 and you really want that, maybe this might not be one that you want to try and sideload an update to because of this.
You gotta break your printer.
Although Caleb is fine because he doesn't have a printer.
I actually do have a printer.
Wait, what?
I bought one. Yeah, I bought it's a second-hand like laser printer because it was cheap. It's like $20, and you can still buy toner for it, like $15 a piece, and it's just old enough. Like it's the sweet spot. I tell you what, it has an Ethernet jack on the back, so I can plug it into my router, and it's network attached printer.
Nice.
But it's not new enough that it's got like some kind of subscription service to buy ink for it that has it locked down via a microchip in the toner cartridge, which is totally a thing that printing companies are doing these days. And
it's
I freaking
annoying.
hate that nonsense.
Oh, it's annoying.
So it's like the sweet spot. And I'm not buying a printer unless I can get something that is in that sweet spot that I'm confident I will be able to continue to buy ink for, and it's not going to break like immediately. So this one is an enterprise grade Brother printer, and Brother has been using the same format of toner cartridges in their printers since like the 80s.
Yeah.
So the cartridges are going to be available cheaply forever, probably. And because it's an enterprise grade printer, it's significantly more robust and designed to handle way more printing and pages than I'm ever going to throw at it.
Right.
So
that's awesome.
I do have a printer now, but I also print to it exclusively from Macs and iOS devices. So I'm still not affected by this, but I do have a printer. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it didn't really call out any specific type. It didn't say HP. It didn't say what, but they said that the compatibility hold will affect all PCs experiencing connectivity issues with printers using the Microsoft IPP class driver or Universal Print class driver. It says when connectivity issues occur between the Windows 11 PCs and printers using the aforementioned drivers, these printers will be stuck with a default setting even when connectivity resumes. And they said the connectivity problems will carry over after upgrading, which is why they put a safeguard there to stop. So,
yikes.
You might be affected by this issue if your printer is unable to use printer-specific features such as color, two-sided, duplex printing, paper size, or type settings, and resolutions that are higher than 300 by 300 dpi.
Oh, that's like That's big. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
like half of the features that you use a printer for.
Yeah, so that's why they said they were like, nope, and boom. So
if it's an issue with their printer driver, though, I wonder if it wouldn't actually affect printers that are connected via network. Because those don't use... Those use a network-connected device driver. They don't use the default Windows printer driver, I don't think. I could be wrong on that, listener. Don't quote. Still don't
I'm
side
not sure on that either.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, like so if you're having issues with the printer, this is what's up. This is what's going on. They did say, as on here, it says Windows 11 users who really want to install the update can either disconnect the printer or try to reinstall it. So,
this is interesting to me because this just makes me, I can't remember what the thing was, but I remember a while back there was something that we all kind of agreed that was kind of a standard thing when it comes to operating systems functioning. And it came at a later date to Windows 11. And printing is
I
another
remember
one
us
of
talking
those
about
kind
this.
of standard issue type things when it comes to operating systems. And it's broken on Windows 11. I mean, this just tells me that Microsoft was like, okay, we need an update. What should we do? Oh, here's Windows 11. And they just didn't think it through and sent it out before it was obviously ready. And
the worst part is, I think this is actually the second time a Windows 11 update has broken printing on Windows.
yeah.
Like
I think it was
the
something
first
else.
time it was just like printing is broken. Like the driver was just borked and you couldn't print, couldn't connect to printers, couldn't do anything. And it was a fairly simple update for them to fix that. This sounds like it's more serious. But yeah, this is like the second time they have broken printing. And like, on one hand, I kind of get it. Not that many people print documents anymore, I guess. But this is the reason that IT departments at companies vet every Windows update, like, with a whole bunch of rigor before they start pushing it out to people's computers. Because otherwise you end up with an entire workforce that needs to print documents that can't print documents.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
No, yeah. I don't know. I think we talked about that. I think I brought up that couple podcasts ago when I was like, does this feel like a preview program for an operating system?
It sort of does, yeah.
But I don't have it, like Windows 11. I don't have anything set up. I don't have any computer components that could probably say install this Windows 11 onto it. So,
you know what I think actually happened? This is it. This is what they did. The developers that were working on Windows 11 had two folders. One that was Windows 11, one that was Windows 11 Beta. And they accidentally sent the Windows 11 Beta out to everyone. And then it got too far into it. They're like, well, we can't really fix this at this point. We don't want to get fired. We can't tell, people that we did this. So they just kept it going. And now it's obviously just not a good thing. So everyone, you've got the beta.
Yeah.
You don't have regular Windows 11. That's dead now.
yeah, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Windows 10 is fine. Like,
Yeah.
keep going on that till you can release Windows 11 in its entirety.
Seriously.
But I don't know. I mean, you got all this. We had the pandemic and all that stuff. I don't know what happened with. It's just that's all I'm seeing. Like, it's funny because we talk about Windows 11 and I still look at stuff and it's like, hey, in this random Insider Ring beta, you can now have this feature that's already on Windows 10, but it's a feature now in Windows 11 and you can test it. And so, that's why I don't report on it too much, because I'm like, not everybody's going to want to be in the Insider program, but technically I guess you are, even if you're not. Like, I don't know.
If you've updated Windows 11, you're basically in the Insider program.
Yep.
I think the worst part about all of this, though, is, and this actually goes along with some of the news that I'll be talking about later, but with Intel's new paradigm for their processors, where they have their big little design with performance cores and efficiency cores, the handler to most efficiently use that design is baked into Windows 11 and kind of tacked onto Windows 10, which means that if you have Intel's latest processors, you're actually probably going to be leaving performance on the table if you stick with Windows 10. And that kind of frustrates me because it's like, but what if, like you said, what if I don't want to be on the Insiders program?
Yeah,
what if I don't want to
realize
beta test your operating system for you, Microsoft? Which, I mean, it's not a problem for me. I'm not buying a latest gen Intel processor anytime soon. So, but still, I think that's kind of, from a consumer standpoint, that's a little frustrating.
That is. I didn't realize that. That's not consumer friendly. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
But dear listener, that's kind of what's going on there. So if you're having issues, I did kind of scroll through some comments and other people's things, but they did say, people are like, I've been having printer problems for months, but the printer works very reliably on my iOS device. So, so there you go. If you have that, but
yep.
Oh, dang.
It's that Bonjour protocol. That thing hasn't changed since like 2001.
Now is when Apple needs to come out or re-resurrect their I'm a Mac commercials and be like, I'm a Mac, I can print. And the guy's like, I'm a PC, and
whoops.
I can't.
I could print. Oh, actually, that one kind of writes itself. It's, I'm a Mac, and printing is something I do every day. I'm a PC, and I can usually print, and then it turns into basically I
can print, but I can't resize. I can't do it. No. Yeah, no.
It just turns into a performance joke, and that's...
Yeah. I mean, we all like new operating systems. We all like having the latest, greatest, but I don't know. This Windows 11's rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, who knows? It might be that TikTok thing of Windows operating systems. You get something really good, and the next one's just crap. It's like 7 was really good, then 8, you're just like, ugh.
Then 10 was really good, and here's 11.
Yeah,
it's
so it's
a
like
self-fulfilling prophecy, I swear.
Well, wasn't it? What was it? XP, then Vista.
Yep.
Then 7,
and then
8,
and then 10. Now
so
11. And
it's like TikTok.
My favorite part is this has been going on as long as Windows has been a thing. Because you had like Windows, ever since Windows 3. Because you had Windows 3, which was kind of trash, and then Windows 3.1, which was pretty good. Windows 5 had a lot of bugs, particularly where connecting to the internet was concerned, which Windows 98 fixed a lot of those. And that was followed by Windows ME, which is the worst operating system in the history of the planet, which was followed by Windows XP, which started out a little weaker, but eventually really solid, and people are still using it.
Yeah.
And, and then, we went from that to Vista, which was terrible, to 7, which was really good, to 8, which was terrible, to 10, which is really good, to 11, which is looking pretty bad. So, I don't know, Microsoft. I feel like they ought to just, maybe it's intentional. Maybe they knew that, like, they've been cursed by a genie or something like that, and Windows 11 was always going to suck because it's the talk on the TikTok cycle.
Yeah.
And there's, like, it's the universe has conspired. There's no way they can get around it. So they just lazily shipped something. They're going to run with it for 3 to 4 years, and then they're going to replace it with an actually good operating system in about 2024. That's my guess.
That's the guess. It's going to be 11.1. Windows 11.1.
I mean, to be fair, Windows 8.1 was noticeably better than Windows 8. It was not. True. It was still not great, but it was definitely better than 8. So an 11.1 update would at least give some hope that you could maybe print something.
I feel like at this rate they would have to call it Windows 24 because it would come out in 2024.
Yeah.
They've been going a little too consistent with the numbering scheme. I mean, they skipped 9, but even still, it's too consistent. 7, 8, 10, 11, no.
10 was supposed to be the last one, so...
that was. They said that was supposed to be the ever
and apparently there was actually a Windows 9. It just never made it far enough in development to be released. But apparently some versions of Windows Server were kind of just Windows 9 except reskinned. Anyways, that's
interesting.
A whole different conversation.
Yeah. We could really go on that one.
Microsoft isn't allowed to learn how to count is the problem. So I figure the next version of Windows needs to be called something totally different.
I mean, they went from 360 to 1.
They did.
They're going to start using names of cats.
I think You know what's funny is, I don't know if you heard or watched that Xbox, what is it, episodes, or that thing we were talking about where they released how the Xbox came about. There were two teams that were actually to make the console. It was, I believe they said it was the DirectX team versus the Windows, I think it was the ME team.
Oh,
Could you imagine if we would have got an ME?
I think it was the
Xbox.
Windows ME. I could be wrong,
I mean,
but that rang a bell when we were talking about that. But it was those two teams, and they basically, you know how Bill Gates was back in the days, like, okay, whoever convinces me gets the project or whatever. And I think the DirectX team was like, they got it because they actually built a somewhat console. They're like,
they
here,
knew what they were doing.
so.
And then the Windows ME team showed up and just like very confidently, all dressed to the nines and everything, walked into the conference room, slapped a glass down on the table in front of Bill Gates, and poured him an overflowing cup of spoiled milk, and then stood back as if, yes, we're going to win this.
We did it.
I will bet you money that's what happened.
I'll have to look that up and double check, but I believe it was the ME team that they said obviously lost. But could you imagine if that's what Xbox was running on? I think, wasn't the Sega Dreamcast, wasn't that on ME?
No. Surely that was using some kind of proprietary Sega something or other.
No. Oh God, I gotta look this up now. I don't know why all of a sudden I've got this history.
Because the
Sega Dreamcast.
Was the Dreamcast the last one, or was the Saturn the last one?
Let's see. Sega Dreamcast was the last one.
Was it? Okay. What year did that come out? I didn't think it was that late.
1998.
Okay, so that was before Windows ME was a thing. So they're safe. It might have been based on Windows 98, I guess.
No,
that's possible.
See, this just reminds me, though, of back in the day before Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. He started the team for the Lisa computer, and then people above him got all pissed off, and so he got pissed off and left and started the Mac part of the computer, the Macintosh team.
Yeah, the Macintosh team.
It was the same idea, basically. These two competing teams building these very similar but also very different computers, and Steve Jobs obviously won out because we have a Macintosh and not a Lisa.
Yeah, we don't have the Lisa. Yep, they and that's I think that's my favorite part, is that the Lisa launched to like a giant silent like crickets. Yeah. Nobody paid attention. Nobody really thought anything of it. They're all like, "Boy, what a dumb gimmick." And then Steve Jobs stands up on stage, makes the computer say hello, and I don't know, the world ends. Like, he basically he like walked into the Lisa development team's office, ate their lunch while maintaining eye contact, and then like peed on the floor and left. That's pretty much how that went down. And they're all standing there like, "What did we do?" It wasn't anything they did. But to be clear, it was something that the CEO of Apple did. And I cannot remember that guy's name.
I can't remember who it was at that time.
Yeah, I can't remember. He did not like Steve Jobs, though.
No, he did not.
And that's how you get outed from your own company, in fact.
Yeah. I was just looking on the Wikipedia real fast on it, and I could have swore that Microsoft did something for them on the Dreamcast. And that's why Microsoft was like, we wanted to get into I could have swore, but I'm not. I guess I'm quickly skimming through it.
Yeah.
But I could have swore there was something about like Windows helped them with something, and I could have swore.
Oh my gosh,
it was like
I wonder if what happened here is like after all of the developers behind the Pippin from Apple got fired by Apple, they all wound up at Microsoft and they developed ME, and then pitched something for the Xbox, and it was probably just the Pippin again. They probably just pitched the Pippin to Bill Gates, and he was all like, "Why would I want a controller with a trackball on it?" And that was the end of that conversation, because why would you want a controller with a trackball on it, Apple?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. I went on a rant. I'll have to look up. I could have swore that's what it was, but I misinterpreted. So apologize if that's totally wrong. But you can send all your complaints to Caleb at Calling All Platforms.
Perfect. Let's do that. Look, the point
He
is...
can make a video about it.
The point is, the spirit of the Windows ME team is still alive and well inside of Microsoft, and they're developing Windows 11. I think.
Yes.
I think that's the takeaway here.
I don't want to say that, but yeah.
Or at least the printer driver for Windows 11.
Right, that printer driver. Jeez. Anywho, but that's really all the bigger Microsoft news I wanted to talk about with that. I mean, like I said, there's more little features here and there and whatever insider ring you're in with that. And obviously the Activision Blizzard thing, we kind of don't want to really, I guess. Okay, here's the update. November 8th. That's when they're going to give their, up to November 8th, it will be the decision if they can buy them or not from the UK. How's that?
Okay.
There's the update.
There it is.
So
we'll say no more about it until then.
Yeah, unless they let them. So we'll say,
right.
Okay, it's done, and they're gonna buy Sega or something next. Who knows? I'm not saying they are, but I'm just
they can't. Buy Sega.
they're
Sega's in bed with Nintendo. That doesn't work. You can't. They can't.
Isn't that weird to say nowadays?
I know. It's so odd.
I just listened to the book Console Wars, and so that's really weird to say. Like just because, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's all the main news I want to talk about. I do have some gaming, but we'll move on to that. We'll move on to that later. Hey, Landon, why don't you go ahead and talk about the things you want to talk about?
All right. I will talk stuff. Google stuff even. So,
whoa.
This week on Thursday the 6th is the Google Pixel event. We are expecting Pixel 7, Pixel 7 Pro, and a Pixel Watch because those have already been basically announced, but we will be getting the finishing touches on these devices on Thursday. Now, is there going to be anything else? I don't know. Maybe a tablet. I mean, they kind of showed off a tablet at I/O this past year.
Yeah.
But they didn't really give anything. They just said, coming in 2023. Oh, okay. So maybe they'll give more details on that, but not sure.
I'm kind of hopeful for the phones.
I'm calling it desktop computer. They're going to announce a Google desktop computer for no reason. And then, that there will be one and they'll never update it. And that'll be the end of that.
They do have Chrome boxes that are basically a Mac Mini, but Chrome version.
Really?
Not from Google, but other companies do make those, yes.
Why?
In case you have a monitor already and you don't want a Chromebook, you want something for a desktop. I don't know.
Yeah, but
it's because it's hip.
Some of the main advantages of Chrome OS are stuff like, it does really well with, on-the-go connectivity, and flipping it is really efficient, so it doesn't use your battery up super fast. Things that make the most sense in a laptop form factor.
I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just saying they are available.
Okay. I guess that's one of my dumbest idea has already been made into a thing. Moments, so carry on.
Also, I don't think Google is going to come back into the Chromebook thing themselves. The Pixelbook is basically dead, and that's fine. It was overpriced for what it was. Anyways,
it really was. It had like a high-end i7 or i9 processor in it too, didn't it?
Yeah. And it was all aluminum. Like hardware-wise,
it
was fantastic. But at the time,
for
Chrome,
a Windows laptop.
Yeah, at the time, Chrome could not really take advantage of that. It's gotten better now, but it's still, I don't know. I don't think Google is going to be making any Chrome hardware anytime soon. So
that's good, probably.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited to see what the new Pixel phones come out with. I'm still running my Pixel 5, and I can kind of tell that the battery's slowly giving out. So,
yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I'm going to stay on Pixel or get the ROG phone finally. I don't know.
Hey.
You know what? That's not a bad option.
It's a big old freaking phone. Holy cow.
Right?
It's true. I mean, you'd be better off doing that than, that Lenovo gaming. No, Logitech. That's what it was. That Logitech gaming.
Oh, the
thing that came
Logitech.
out the
Yeah,
last
that's
week.
right.
But yes,
Yeah.
that is happening this Thursday on the 6th at 10 a.m. Eastern time if you want to watch it. So there you go. Speaking of Pixel devices, I normally don't really talk rumors and whatnot before this, especially this soon to an event, because there's just no point. But I have to mention this because I thought this was funny and interesting. So the Pixel Watch is rumored to have what they're calling fast pair on device. Like, so if you have it by your phone, basically it does the same thing. Like if you open AirPods up next to an iOS device, it just kind of poof, it's working. It's kind of like that idea. But a user in Australia, this is someone on Reddit pointed this out. He was walking past an electronics store in a mall. He was on Instagram is what he said. And he all of a sudden got this fast pair prompt pop up on his phone. Like, what the heck? The only thing we're assuming, obviously, is retailers are getting these devices. Someone inside the store, like a worker there, had turned on a Pixel Watch, and he just happened to be in the vicinity at the time that this watch was turned on, and it wanted to pair with his phone. And I was like, that's amazing. But it also gave us a little bit of a clue as to what's going to happen with these watches. I mean, obviously, this fast pair thing is probably going to happen. It also is asking on this prompt for you to download the Pixel Watch app. So there's going to be a separate app that goes along with this, probably for different settings, kind of similar to the Apple Watch app or basically any Android Wear watch that you can get right now as well. You have to have a different watch app to like control faces and do different things like that. So it's interesting. We learned some things there, but I just love the fact that he was just happened to walk past this store on his phone and, you do want to pair this watch to your device? Should have said yes, because that would be awesome.
So what do you mean? It's mine now. It says my name in the operating system. I don't know.
It is mine.
It's my watch. You got to give it to me. But I mean, that's all the tech news that I have for this week. So yeah, Google Pixel event. That all the news is going to be for next week's episode from me. So get ready for that. It's going to be me talking again for a while. What everyone wants, right? Wrong.
Well, I mean, you got the Pixel event, and the week after we got the Surface event, so that'll be fun.
It's that time of year when all the stuff comes out.
Yeah, it is.
It's gonna be a fun time.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on then. Hey, I heard that Intel and AMD, they might have some things, and we have, a dedicated guy that's no longer our Apple guy. Let's be real.
Yep.
That's Landon. So we now have our PC part.
I guess.
What should we call it? PC master race?
That's
Whatever.
it. I'm the PCMR representative now.
PCMR.
I think he's just the PC part picker in human form.
Look, PC part picker is bookmarked in my browser. Okay, don't.
I know.
I
know.
So yeah, speaking of all the things coming out now this time of year, we talked, listener, about the announcement of the Ryzen 7000 series of processors, and they launched this past week. The review embargo lifted like literally the day after we recorded last week's podcast, and the processors were available the day after that. So Ryzen 7000 series processors have launched alongside the X670 motherboards, not the B650. To be clear, those motherboards have not launched, and that is going to color quite a lot of the conversation that you will hear about Ryzen 7000 at this point. So, the specs for these processors are as described in our previous episode. You can go back and listen to it there. I'm not going over it again. The general impressions from the reviews are generally positive. The 7950X in particular is a monster. It easily beats every other mainstream chip in outright computing performance. So production workloads, anything that's like, creative workloads and that sort of thing, video production, 3D modeling, that sort of thing. It just absolutely wipes the floor with everybody else, including last generation's 5950X. So that's pretty good. It does handily trounce the 12900K in games for the vast majority of cases. However, little nugget there, the 5800X 3D from AMD last generation does better than the 7950X in about 50% of the cases that I have seen tested. That thing, it turns out 3D V-Cache is genuinely pretty awesome for gaming in particular. So yeah, the 5800X 3D, like AMD is claiming that the 7950X is the world's fastest gaming processor right now. And they're mostly kind of not being false about that, but the 5800X 3D honestly is basically the same performance, if not a little bit faster, generally speaking. So for pure gaming workloads, maybe not so great.
Gotcha.
The 7900X performs similarly to the 7950X in games, because games are they don't take advantage of, the what is it, 32 threads versus the 24 threads. Like, games don't care. You've got more than 12, you're probably set.
Yeah.
So, similarly in games, it is slower in production workloads, obviously, because it has fewer cores, but is still, that one, the second tier, significantly faster than anything available from Team Blue right now. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because that's maybe going to change. We'll talk about that in a minute. The 7700X is fine. Given the existence of the 5800X 3D, it may not be worth the platform upgrade, honestly. And the 7600X is like, so the X600 series of chips from AMD over the past few generations have been like the best value processors out there. The 6-core 12-thread chips ever since, honestly, the 2600X, the 3600X, the 5600X, and then now we were expecting the 7600X to be this really good performance for value. And the performance is solid, and in certain circumstances in games, this thing actually does outperform the 12900K. So that's highly situational, but in some cases it does really well, and in particular minimum frame rates stay quite consistent on the 7600X versus the 12900K. However, it makes absolutely zero sense with the current iteration of the AM5 platform, because the X series motherboards are the only ones available, right? So you're going to want to wait for the B series or A series motherboards to be available before you buy a 7600X, because otherwise you're going to spend $300 on your processor and $500 on your motherboard, and that's not how you're supposed to do that. If you've got a $300 processor, you spend $150 or $100 on your motherboard, not that, half the price of your processor, not double the price of your processor. Okay, just shopping advice for you there, listener. So yeah, that's kind of how the chips have stacked up. The AM5 platform itself, this is obviously new to us, so most reviews took special care to kind of test and suss out the platform, how it's working. The reason that AM5 exists is honestly because AMD wanted to increase the power draw allowances for their processors. And that's why they've switched from using a PGA pin grid array socket to an LGA or LAN grid array socket, where the pins are on the motherboard, not on the CPU. Because that allowed them to pack more pins into it, and that allows them to push more power through it. It turns out that part of the reason that Ryzen chips have been so gosh darn power efficient up to this point was actually just a limitation of AM4 socket that was introduced back in like 2015. So I don't think AMD was happy about that. And they were probably just kind of living with it until they could like feasibly update to AM5 and not lose the goodwill of the entire community. But that does mean all of these processors draw significantly more power than their predecessors, though, worth noting, still not as much at the high end as Intel's high-end processors. Intel's high-end processors will still, like the 12900K, will still draw about 100 watts more power than the 7950X, even at full power draw, which is a lot, considering that the 7950X will draw up to like 240 watts of power. The thermals of the chips are also predictably hotter, so don't skimp on your cooler. Though it is worth noting that AMD has, with these Zen 4 cores, has revised their thermal management system inside of the chip. So that's the safeguards, listener, that are in place on your processor to keep it from a thermal runaway situation where it draws too much power, gets too hot, and burns itself out. What they'll do is they'll go as fast as they can until they get to a certain temperature, and then they will start dropping the speed and the performance of the processor to keep its temperature low, right? Underneath a maximum theoretical temperature somewhere, which is usually about 100 degrees Celsius. That's usually where processors max out. The Zen 4 processors have revised that maximum to 115 degrees Celsius. So if you are running one of these things and you're noticing that your motherboard seems to be perfectly happy just letting the thing cruise at 95 degrees Celsius, even, it's turboing up to its hottest or its highest speed, and it's just chilling there right next to 100 degrees C, that's actually fine. That's expected behavior, and you still have a decent amount of headroom, which should be, pretty handy when people get around to overclocking these chips. So that's the 7000 series launch. Hopefully I've successfully summed everything up for you, listener, in a way that provides useful purchasing advice, which I can sum up even more. For most of you, probably don't buy any of these yet. The motherboards you want have not shipped. So there you go. Ryzen 7000. Any questions, comments before I move on?
No.
Okay, perfect. Because now it's time to talk about Intel or AMD's direct competition in the processor space, Intel. And isn't it awesome to have competition in the processor space?
Yes, it is.
It's so great, makes me so happy. Okay, this past week, Intel, at their Innovation 2022 event, announced the 13th generation Core processors, which are going to be launching on October 20th. So that's the launch date. Review embargo lifts a couple of days before that. Or the day before that. It was pretty close. So the chips that they have announced are there's three of them. It's basically the same launch SKUs as they normally have for their processors right when they launch a new generation. So the i9 13900K has 8 of their performance cores and 16 of their efficiency cores. That's up from, I believe, 12 efficiency cores, or was it 10? 10 or 12 efficiency cores on the previous generation 12900K. So, we've talked about this before in the past, listener, but just to sum up the way Intel designs their processors now is they have their power cores and efficiency cores. Obviously, efficiency uses less power, and power is faster, uses more power. And the main difference in terms of usefulness to these things is that the power cores are hyper-threaded, the efficiency cores are not, and they're generally just slower. So 8 power cores plus 16 efficiency cores adds up to 32 threads, which you'll note is very much the same as AMD's 16-core 7950X, which all of those cores are hyper-threaded, so that's 32 cores, or 32 threads. So, yeah, that's now Intel's main, their top-tier chip is actually matching the core count, at least the thread count, of AMD's top-tier chip. It will turbo up to 5.8 gigahertz and is going to ship with 36 megabytes of L3 cache for $660 MSRP. The i7 13700K has 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores for a total of 24 threads, with a max turbo of 5.4 gigahertz, 30 megabytes of L3 cache, and a retail price of $550. The i5 13600 has 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores for a total of 20 threads. Now, this is kind of a big deal because in the past, the i5 processors have not had efficiency cores. They have just had power cores, which means they were competing. That i5 13600 would have been, or K. I didn't write K in my notes. These are all K SKU chips, which means they're unlocked for overclocking. So that 13600K would have been competing directly with the 7600X at 6 cores, 12 threads. but they've added efficiency cores to it now. So now it has up to 20 threads and has the ability to do efficient background tasks while using the power cores for foreground stuff. It has a max turbo of 5.1 gigahertz, 20 megabytes of L3 cache, and will retail for $330. So,
Wow.
Overall, kind of what we expected. The 13900K is actually retailing for about $40 less than the 7950X is selling for. It is worth noting that all of these chips have less cache than their AMD counterparts, and that's not even counting the possibility of future AMD processors that have their 3D cache that will add more cache to stuff. And it's also worth noting that since so many of the cores on the 13900K are efficiency cores, they're not going to stack up core to core or thread to thread to the performance of AMD's processors. So that's also going to color things. That being said, I feel like the 13600K is a clear win over the 7600X, simply because they will be retailing for about the same price, and they obviously have their 6 cores, 12 threads of power, whatever, and AMD's cores might be faster than Intel's power cores, but having an additional 8 threads just chilling in the background to do stuff, I feel like that 13600K is going to be a real good, a really good argument in favor of like budget systems and stuff like that, mid-range systems. So the platform for these chips is still going to support DDR4. It's still using the same socket as 12th generation, and so that's probably part of the reason why. I would not expect that to continue going forward, but if you have old RAM from your system that is DDR4, you can still use that. You don't have to upgrade to DDR5 to use a 13th gen processor. They're all being manufactured on the quote-unquote Intel 7 platform, which is essentially their version of a 10 nanometer process for manufacturing their silicon. They're obviously claiming that they're going to beat all of AMD's everything, but like AMD's charts were comparing to the 12th generation processors because 13th generation obviously didn't exist at the time. They were comparing directly to the 5000 series AMD chips, not 7000 series chips that literally just launched. So yeah, take all of their claimed performance with a grain of salt. We need to see direct head-to-head performance comparisons in order to know what's going on here. The 7950X and the 7900X will probably still have the performance, like computing performance edge over Intel's chips, particularly the 7950X. But in terms of gaming, it does actually look like AMD is probably going to need to fire back with 3D cache enabled versions of their processors in order to reclaim the Best at Games title, which is awesome because this is what happens when you actually have competition in the space. AMD launches something that beats Intel's thing, and then Intel launches something that beats AMD's thing, and then AMD launches something that beats Intel's thing, and you can actually buy a processor and 2 years later feel like you've got a fundamentally out-of-date piece of crap. Did not used to be like that, listener. It really didn't. In 2011, I bought an Intel i7 processor in a MacBook Pro that I genuinely did not feel like it was outdated until like almost 2019. It was nuts. Okay. So things have changed a little bit since then, and that is just lovely. Very happy. So that's the 13th generation announcement for Intel's Raptor Lake, whatever quote unquote code name processors. 13th gen. That's what they are.
Nice.
Now, some other stuff also happened at this innovation event. Intel accidentally, quote unquote, I think it was on purpose, displays a wafer, like a processor wafer that comes out of their fabrication line, that was supposedly had a sticker on it that identified it as a 34-core Raptor Lake processor. So Raptor Lake is the code name for the 13th generation processors that just got announced. So what the heck is this 34-core chip? Obviously, they did not announce a 34-core processor. So that has fueled a lot of rumors that Intel is planning on launching new high-end desktop platform chips, which they have not done since, what were they called? The last ones, I can't remember. It's been since, I think, their 10th generation processors that they've had a dedicated high-end desktop platform processor. And if you wanted more core counts than were available in their mainstream i9 processors, you had to buy a Xeon from their server line. And if you were buying a Xeon from their server line, you probably felt like an idiot because you were paying way more money for way less performance you could get from an AMD EPYC or Threadripper processor. So Intel hasn't really been playing in the high-end desktop space for several years, but looks like they're actually preparing to launch something in this space. Hopefully, like first quarter, second quarter of next year. Nice. Along with that, on the cloud-based computing platform known as Einstein at Home, that leverages a whole bunch of people's home computers via the cloud to do intense number crunching that I don't even want to pretend I know how that works. There was somebody spotted a Threadripper chip with Zen 4 cores in it. It was it was a 128 core processor, which probably means a 64 core hyper-threaded Threadripper processor from AMD. Now, obviously, they haven't launched any Threadripper processors with the Zen 4 cores in them because they literally just launched the first Zen 4 processors with the Ryzen 7000 series line. So it looks like AMD is also gearing up for new entries in their high-end desktop Threadripper platform. So that's actually pretty cool because this is what happens when you have competition in a space. You have multiple companies trying to outdo each other, and the consumer, generally speaking, is the one who benefits the most. So that's fantastic. Fun rumors to hear, and, hopefully this stuff comes soon.
Yeah, I agree.
And the last thing that Intel announced at their innovation event, I'm going to go ahead and slide into a little bit of gaming stuff right here. It's a GPU, so it's technically kind of between general tech and gaming, but Arc GPUs, they're a thing. Intel's actually going to launch them. There's a launch date and price, and they've sent review kits to reviewers to review. So, I feel like it might actually happen, listener. So, in case you've missed this whole saga, Intel announced that they were making standalone GPUs for desktops. They called them Arc, Intel Arc, spelled either ARC or ARK. You can go to Google to find out which one of those is a graphics card and which one of those is an online repository of processor specifications. They announced it, and then they proceeded to do absolutely jack squat with it for 2 years. We have been waiting a very long time for these GPUs to actually launch. But the A770 and the A750 are going to be launching on October 12th. So the 750, you're going to be able to get an 8GB version of that with 8 gigs of RAM, and the 770 will be available in 16GB or 8GB configurations. The A770 is the only one they've given us a price for currently, but they are saying that will start at $330. So that's presumably for the 8GB version. But that actually puts it cheaper than, stuff from AMD and NVIDIA like the RTX 3060 or the RX 6600 XT, I think. So, those are mid-range cards. I think we can be generous and call them mid-range cards. They're not quite entry level, but that does mean that the A770 is going to be an entry level card. And so they're definitely not launching anything that's targeting high-end 4K gaming with ray tracing enabled or anything like that. 1440p is maybe 1080 is where you're going to be sitting with these cards. But the price is right. $330 is in fact cheaper than an 8GB card from AMD or NVIDIA, even, with GPU prices declining as much as they are. So that's pretty cool. The review embargo for these cards is supposedly going to lift on the 5th, which is significantly earlier than the day before, which is kind of unusual for most of these review embargoes, but that means we may see performance numbers for these things as early as like 3 days from now, listener. As of this recording, we're recording on the 2nd, so by the time you are listening to this, they may have already had reviews available for them. So yeah, there you go. Intel actually launching their Arc GPUs. In theory.
Caleb, I'm somewhat disappointed because you are generally really good at coming up with good ways to word these type of things or give like some sort of pun or something around this type of situation. But I think this story, this saga that we've continued on with for the past little while, because it's been going for a while, should have been called Intel and the Witch Arc.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be a very good, well, very horrible, YouTube parody done by somebody.
Well, just so long as nobody opens up their box and has their face melted off, I think we'll all agree that this launch will go well.
That all depends on how good these GPUs really are. If they're face melting good, that's not a bad thing, and
that's fair. Listener, these graphics cards are so fast that if you open it, then yeah, you're gonna keep your eyes closed. We'll just say that.
Yes.
Yes. So there you go. That's my general tech / quote unquote gaming news. And that is the main events, the main announcements coming out of Intel's innovation event this year. So obviously we've got a lot to look forward to from Intel here. And with this, we have AMD has launched new processors. Intel has about to launch new graphics cards and has told us when their new processors are going to launch. NVIDIA has also told us when their new graphics cards are going to launch, or at least one of them, 4090. They've told us when that's going to launch. And so at this point, kind of all we're waiting for from the trifecta of giant processing manufacturers, we're really just looking for graphics cards from AMD at this point. Not sure when those are coming exactly, but rumors point to an early November announcement date for those. So may actually be, listener, that I will shut up for a little while because Apple may or may not be having an October event to launch new stuff. Like, new stuff will be launching in October from Apple, but there may or may not be an actual event to do it. They may just press releases and now there's M2 processors in your MacBook Pros. So, remains to be seen how they're going to do that, but it turns out I'm not the Apple guy anymore anyway, so
yeah,
so. Doesn't matter. But yes, that's it for me.
That's it. Whew. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and take over a little bit, talking about, since we're getting into some gaming. All right. Hey, guys, guess what?
What?
Netflix is opening its 4th game studio.
Oh my gosh. They had 3? What?
Apparently they had 3. Yep. It's opening in Helsinki, Finland.
Wow. This is one of those, like, it's that moment from the Phineas and Ferb movie where if I had a nickel for every time I'd been doomed by a sock, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Like, this is that moment. It's
yes.
Like, if I had a nickel for every time Netflix opened a game studio, I would have 4 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened 4 times. I had no idea. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. So I figured I'd mention that since I just don't know what to expect with this Netflix thing, so I'm going to kind of keep an eye, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
yeah, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Netflix knows.
I guess. I don't know. So, yeah. If you're one that plays games on your phone with Netflix, sweet. There you go. You got another game studio coming up there. All right, let's move on. A couple updates. One for Flight Simulator. they're actually going to, they say the Microsoft Flight Simulator is heading to Canada. So now they're going to be updating it with high fidelity imagery of Canada.
Oh, okay.
So
I was like, was Canada not a part of Flight Sim until now?
no, I think they're just making it a
the
little
whole
better.
world, not just
Making it better, I guess.
They had everything but Canada. Like if you flew over the north border of the United States, you would just like clip through the environment into outer space and fall forever.
So when they launched, they didn't have as many high fidelity of each country. So like every once in a while, they'd be like, "Here's Australia, here's this." So they're just coming out. So Canada is the next one, and I know there's a big following of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So
it's an incredibly impressive technical achievement, that game.
Yes, it really is. So there you go. Let's go ahead and move on. The Microsoft is adding a couple more options to Xbox consoles. Something I think is really good is they're going to add an option to disable quick resume. Reason why you'd want to do this is some games still kind of tend to run in the background, but you don't want it to. So, for example, there's some people that are like, yeah, this says that I've been playing this game for 150 hours, but my save says only 5. That's because it's still running in the background with the quick resume. And sometimes if you have a timed game or something that, it's something like that. And there's also issues that some games just don't work with quick resume very well. So you can just say, don't do a quick resume for this game, please. So
you come back, it's like, oh, my Tamagotchi keeps dying. I can't keep it fed.
True. So, I mean, more options, more features. Sweet, and they just keep on rolling. At least you don't have to be in the insider program on this one.
Hey,
I did that once, and then Microsoft blocked me for being on their insider program, so that was weird. I am going to keep bringing that up because it's
amazing.
That was weird, but that's pretty much all the gaming news that I have. I want to talk about. Caleb's done. Hey, Landon. Do you have any gaming news or have one more thing? We are in luck.
I've got some gaming news. 2 things of gaming news, even. So, buckle up, listener. It's going to get interesting. So the first thing I want to talk about is Lenovo they haven't actually announced this yet, but the people over at ChromeUnboxed.com, it's a website all about Chrome OS and whatnot, they have found, I don't know where they found this, but they got some information about a new gaming Chromebook. And it's supposed to be called the Lenovo IdeaPad 5 Gaming Chromebook. Now, the name might sound somewhat familiar, minus the Chrome or the gaming part, because Lenovo just announced the Lenovo IdeaPad 5i Chromebook not that long ago, and the specs are actually very similar, but one is more geared towards gaming. I'll go over the specs for this one specifically, really quick. It's obviously on Chrome OS. It's got either an option for an Intel Core i3 or an Intel Core i5 12th gen CPU. Going in these, you can get 8 gigs of RAM, up to 512 gigs of storage. It's got a 16-inch, 2.5K display that is at 120 hertz. So there's your gaming part of it. Well, that actually is in the regular Lenovo Chromebook that came out not that long ago as well.
I'm kind of surprised those integrated graphics can drive 120 frames, if anything.
Yes.
Even the desktop.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. But it's got that. Here comes the gaming part. It's got a 4-zone RGB backlit keyboard. So there you go. It's got aluminum
device.
Yeah. It's got an aluminum top on there, so it's, decent hardware. 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, and a micro SD card slot if you want that for stuff. And it also has an audio jack, so you got that as well. And this is another part where it gets a little different than the regular IdeaPad that they came out with. This has stereo speakers on it, whereas it's got 4 speakers from what I understand. whereas the other one has just 2 stereo speakers, so
Right.
better sound. And then obviously Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1 are inside as well, but I mean, it doesn't sound horrible. And you might be wondering, well, what can I use a gaming Chromebook for? Like, what is there to use with this? Well, there are a few game streaming options out there now. I mean, we've got quite a few of them, but the ones that are available on Chromebook are like that GeForce Now, Amazon's Luna, and then Steam for Chrome OS is coming. If it I don't think it's been officially launched yet. I think it's in beta
still in beta, pretty sure.
So that is coming, or if you have the beta already, then there's that. So, I mean, pretty decent
options.
Yeah, not too bad. There's not a price for this yet because, again, it hasn't officially been announced by Lenovo, but I wanted to talk about it because it's a gaming Chromebook that actually seems like it might be somewhat decent for what's available for it, at least. I mean, obviously, the streaming side of gaming, you don't necessarily need super high-end specs for it. This type of thing is going to be more beneficial for when Steam is officially on Chrome. So, there's that. But, not too bad.
Yep.
Now, you may be wondering, listener, why I didn't mention Stadia as an option for this Chrome OS laptop to game with. Well, let me start this here really quick. Listener, there comes times where Google starts things and Google ends things. Usually, when they end things, it takes 5 to 10 years for them to officially die. Stadia only took 3. And it's really too bad. Stadia, from what I understand, was pretty decent. Most people that got it actually kind of enjoyed it. But they did announce just this past week that they will be killing Stadia on January 18th of 2023. So, if you've been using it, I'm very sorry. There is some good news from this if you are a user of Stadia. All hardware purchases that were purchased from Google, I have to say that because I don't think any of these purchases, if you bought anything from elsewhere, this will happen. But all hardware purchases like controllers, Chromecast that came in a bundle with Stadia or whatnot, will be getting a full refund from Google. So that's nice. You will also be getting any refunds for all games or DLC that you may have purchased on Stadia. Now, if you were one of the Stadia Pro users that had the subscription and you just had basically all the games available that way, that money will not be getting refunded because that went to, making Stadia, which I guess there obviously weren't enough of you.
It was a subscription. I mean, you technically were paying month for month for that, and you got your months. So
yeah. But if you are one of those users, you will not be getting charged from now until the time it dies. So you can continue to play Stadia for the next couple months for free until it dies in January. So what's interesting about this as well is the day before this was announced, Stadia released a new desktop UI that will be coming out to, everyone that's using it in the next week or so. So that's interesting.
I feel like it's quite remarkable how they're trying to do everything right by the consumers of their product here. All these refunds, it's very big of them. I appreciate that, especially in a climate of giant corporations who, generally speaking, tend to not do this sort of thing. So thank you, Google, for being like just the bare minimum of decent. That being said, you might have maybe been a little bit more decent to your developers and thought to send them an email before you announced to the world that you were shutting Stadia down. Because there were quite a number of developers who were planning on launching games onto Stadia here in the next couple of months who were like,
Yep.
What? They had no idea, no forewarning. They found out the same time as everybody else. It's like, ooh, that's kind of rough. But
Yeah.
at least they are trying to do right by the consumers. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that is a good thing. Now, they did say that some of the underlying tech inside of Stadia will be used in other parts of the company, like, say, in YouTube and Google Play, some augmented reality stuff, different things like that. They're going to be using the stuff that they made with Stadia to benefit other parts of Google. I remember them talking a while back of licensing out the Stadia, not necessarily platform, but the technology to other streaming services. I haven't heard anything about that happening yet, but maybe that's one way they could potentially keep Stadia alive-ish. Obviously not the full platform, but the technology behind it could be used by someone else potentially. I think that would be smart from Google. They could make some money off this, but who
Yeah, I mean,
knows?
they developed all of that negative latency technology. Like, they gotta use it somewhere.
Yeah. Speaking of that negative latency, so the hardware on this side of things, yes, if you had the Stadia controller, again, you'll be getting refunded if you bought it from Google. But now, what do you do with this hardware? Well, if you have the
Recycle it.
Chromecast, it'll still work as a Chromecast. That is still a thing. But the controller, you can't use it over Wi-Fi with anything else. It is technically a Bluetooth controller, but they also didn't open that up to be able to use with anything else. They could still do that. But if they don't, then you just have a nice controller paperweight, I guess.
Yeah. I do think that there are some open source drivers that will allow you to use it with a Windows PC via cable. Like,
yes,
plug
you
it
can.
in.
You can still plug this in and use it. That is correct.
Yeah.
But if you want to use it Bluetooth, then you're out of luck.
Yeah, because it's like it has a Bluetooth chip on it as part of the whole wireless connectivity chip, but what Google was mostly using was the Wi-Fi connectivity, because that's part of their negative latency technology. After all, is that they were connecting directly to your Wi-Fi and sending it directly to the servers instead of connecting to Bluetooth and then doing that whole thing. So yeah, they never really developed a Bluetooth driver for it. It has Bluetooth, but can't really use it. So that's fun.
Yeah, so this is yet another product of Google that is going into the Google graveyard. If you haven't looked this up, listener, go to killedbygoogle.com. It's got a list of all the things that Google has started and subsequently killed, because that's what they do. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, if you've been listening to us for a while, there's 274 things on this list. That does include things that are still available but will be dying in the near future, including Stadia.
Like Stadia, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. But it's, I do have to give them credit, because they are just killing it. They realize this is not something that they are going to continue on with in the future. They're just going to end it and, put it out of its misery, let it go. Whereas normally what they do is they decide that they're not going to develop for it anymore, and they let it linger for 1, 2, 5 years, and then officially kill it after, it's just gone to crap and nobody, like 3 people use it. But they didn't do that. They actually just said, nope, we're done. It's done. Ready to go. So I got to give them credit there. And also, again, refunding the consumers that purchase stuff from them. That's awesome. So Google is potentially learning some things here. No, probably not. But,
maybe.
At least this was a better way of killing something. So, but that is all of my gaming news for this week.
Yeah, it's pretty. I knew that I feel like Stadia was going to go, but I didn't think how abrupt this was going to go and easy to just kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good times.
I hope something happens. It's funny. I was doing some research, and apparently, and I can't think of the guy's name, and I was trying to look him up, but apparently the guy that's on Stadia that ended it. So apparently he's got a really bad track record. I think his name is Phil. I
Yes.
can't remember his last name.
I just saw it. Phil Harrison. He's the vice president and general manager of Stadia. Well, was.
Well, apparently this timeline is he started with PlayStation in PlayStation 3 era, where the PlayStation 3 had a really bad start. Then he moved on to Xbox when the Xbox One era was launched, and he had a really bad start with the Xbox One launch. And then he moved over. What was the other? There's one more thing between Stadia and Xbox, but yeah, everyone says, how do you fail upwards? But they pretty much said this guy, it's Phil something. I can't remember his name you were saying, but I laughed. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy that happened. That
I'm trying to think what failed gaming venture happened between the launch of the Xbox One and the launch of Stadia.
So I'm looking on Wikipedia about Phil Harrison. So he first started at Sony in 1992.
Yeah.
He was executive. He let's see, what did he do at Sony? Something obviously with PlayStation. He served as vice president, third-party relations and research and development for Sony Computer Entertainment from 96 to 2000. So he was there for a few years.
Okay, yeah.
But then he went from there to, let's see, this says Infogrames/Atari.
oh yeah.
And
Did
then
he kill Atari? Oh, come on, man.
it says on, well, no. I don't know if he might have been part of, obviously he was part of it, but yeah. And then also it says this Gaikai, I don't know, Gaikai. I don't know what that, it's a cloud gaming service in 2010.
Oh.
It just says it was announced that Phil Harrison has joined the advisory board at David Perry's cloud gaming service. Doesn't say he ever left, so maybe that, I don't know if that's still a thing or not, but
I've
there.
never heard of it.
yeah. And then he joined Microsoft in March of 2012, and then he left in 2015. Then he joined Google in 2018, and then obviously, I mean, he hasn't technically left Google, but he's saying the Stadia will be shutting down, so he's probably going to be leaving Google here soon. So if you're a gaming company, don't hire this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the very best track record on that one.
Yeah.
But no, it was funny. There was a meme that showed the Grim Reaper. It's the one where the Grim Reaper, you see that there's a couple doors that have been opened and then a bloodline to the next door, and he's knocking on the door of Stadia, but it shows PlayStation, then it shows Xbox. There's this bloodline where it just keeps killing them, and I thought it was funny. Anyway, well, I think we hit the end of the episode, you guys.
I think that's it.
You guys ready for these next weeks where there's going to be a lot of news?
No.
I mean, up for everything, gaming, hardware. Whew.
Yeah, freaking Overwatch 2 starts in like 2 days.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that's, I'm not going to be doing news coverage. I'm just going to be playing Overwatch 2. So,
especially with the new Junkenstein thing coming out, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a new healer. Like, come on, I'm a support player by heart. There's a new support character. I gotta play it.
Gotta do it. All right, listener. Well, if you want to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of us on our social media platforms. You can hop on our website at callingallplatforms.com. You can also hop on to our YouTube channel, Calling All Platforms there. I'm sure we'll try and get a stream or two in of Overwatch to maybe we could throw it on there. We definitely got to try that because now that it's all purely crossplay, I bet we can get a few people in there and really have some fun. So,
yep. And it's free to play, so we don't have to make them buy the game.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, all right, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.